What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to Cantina Talk. What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So, the fourth episode of AHSOKA came out last night, and I just have to say, holy shit, this show is incredible. Dave Filoni is an absolute genius. This episode made me feel so many emotions from laughter, to fear, to crying, and the whole nine yards. Peter Ramsey definitely needs to direct more Star Wars episodes in the future. This show's been incredible, and I need episode 5 to come out tomorrow. But without further ado, let's just get right into this breakdown. We start off the episode again with not only the silver Lucasfilm logo once again, just like in episode 2 and 3, but we also have the character heads again in the same color format as last time. But this time, this is accompanied by crackling sounds of Ahsoka's ship as sparks are flying. We then get the first shot of this episode inside of Ahsoka's T6 shuttle in the Red Forest on the planet Seatos. We pick up pretty much where we left off in the last episode. We then follow Sabine into the cockpit of Ahsoka's ship where we can see Huyang working on it. Sabine goes to the communicator and tries to get in contact with Hera and Home One, but to no avail. Huyang then continues to work on the ship as Sabine goes outside to find Ahsoka. When Sabine finds Ahsoka, she lets her know that the comms are down, as well as the primary power converter, meaning they can't fly or send a distress signal. Ahsoka and Sabine then come up with a plan to go to Baylan's location, that being the ruins area. Ahsoka tries to inform Sabine that if for some reason they cannot take the orb and find Ezra themselves, they have to destroy it in order for Thrawn not to return as heir to the Empire. But Sabine does not want to take that as an option due to the fact that they won't be able to have Ezra back. Ahsoka then asks Sabine if she can count on her. Sabine tells her of course, and then starts to walk back into the ship. While this is happening, Huyang is also walking out to make more repairs. Ahsoka tells Huyang to be careful as she re-enters the ship, and Huyang walks over to make those repairs. Along with that, we get a wide shot of the ship, along with an HK-87 droid. This is letting us know that they are and have been watching this entire time. We then move on and get a shot of the ruins area, and we are greeted by Baylan and Morgan Elsbeth. As well, Merrick and Shin start approaching here. We can see from the background that there's some equipment here, as well as the mercenaries, that being the HK-7 droids, as well as the scout guards. This equipment will come back into play later on. Shin informs Baylan that they have located Ahsoka's T6 shuttle. Baylan tells Shin to inform the droids and the scout guards to move in. Shin and Merrick then also leave alongside them. Baylan ends up telling Morgan that they better get moving, and she is under the impression that Baylan is in fear of what is to come. Baylan then replies, experience, letting us know that this is definitely not his first time being in a situation just like this. Following this, we are greeted with the Ahsoka title card, and we are also shown the name of this episode, that being Fallen Jedi. I believe this is talking about Baylan, but could also be talking about Anakin. I'm going to have more on that later. We cut back to Huyang working on the ship, and he is starting to make some progress. While this is happening, the HK-7 droid, as well as some of the scout guards, start to approach Huyang. Next, we see Sabine at the center table with her bag and all the gear she has. We can see her Mandalorian helmet, Ezra's saber, both of her Westar 35 blasters, as well as a power cell from one of her blasters that is to the right of her helmet here. Sabine racks forward the slide in her first blaster and checks to make sure it has its power cell, and it does. But once she checks the second one, it is missing. She then starts to look frantically in her bag as Ahsoka appears in the background, watching her. She notices Sabine is starting to panic and walks over and hands her the power cell that was next to her helmet, giving her a sense of relief. Ahsoka tells Sabine to relax, but Sabine instantly tells her that she doesn't need to worry about her. Ahsoka does seem to be worried here, and maybe even a little untrusting of Sabine while they are talking here. Ahsoka talks about how she knows Ezra means a lot to Sabine, and that ultimately we still have to do what's right regardless of our personal feelings. This is foreshadowing for later on in the episode. We then return to Huyang, and he has restored some of the power to the ship, but he hears a twig snap behind him, and he is then ambushed by the HK-7 assassin droid. We have Huyang and the HK droid fully duking it out here. Interestingly though, Huyang is also using his other two arms that are on his back, essentially boxing with 4 arms. I thought this was really cool to see and kind of reminded me of Pong Krell in a way. We can see here that the HK droid is a lot more powerful in hand-to-hand combat than Huyang is, even with 4 arms. Huyang is able to land in some blows, but ultimately the HK droid is doing more damage. Huyang tries to call out for help, but his mouth gets muffled and covered by the HK droid, but in a quick desperate attempt to get help, takes one of his back arms and shorts the circuits to the ship, making it lose power, thus alerting Ahsoka and Sabine. While this is all happening, the scout guards start to move in. Following this, we cut back to the inside of Ahsoka's T6 shuttle, and Sabine says that Huyang made the damage worse to the ship. Ahsoka instantly knows that something is wrong and that Huyang would not do that. Ahsoka activates her sabers and starts to walk outside. Sabine puts on her helmet and follows. Right away, Sabine and Ahsoka jump off the ramp and land on the ground. Sabine does a roll and shoots the HK droid in the head that was fighting with Huyang. Ahsoka cuts down one of the guards as Sabine shoots another. Ahsoka and Sabine start working together and fighting together side by side, taking out these guards one by one. Sabine takes out another guard, but then starts getting hit by blaster bolts from another one. Her Mandalorian armor eats the shots like nothing, and then Sabine makes an X with her wrists to block the shots. This reminded me a lot of Wonder Woman. I just have to say though, it is really cool seeing Sabine be a Mandalorian again, and her using her armor with her blasters, just like how she did in Rebels. Ahsoka notices that Sabine's being hit by blaster bolts, and pierces her saber right through the scout guard's face that she was fighting, ending the threat so that she is able to use the Force and grab another one of the scout guards and pull him through the air and place him in front of Sabine, blocking all the blaster bolts that were coming. Ahsoka throws the guard through the air, and this gives Sabine a quick second to counterattack. She shoots the cable from her wrist gauntlet that wraps up the guard that was shooting at her, and Ahsoka slashes him across the head with her saber. Funny enough here, Huyang appears to just be chilling on the ground. I know that the HK droid is lying on top of him, but the way that he's positioned just looks pretty funny, and I wanted to point it out. Huyang then moves the HK droid off of him and stands up as the trio regroup all together. Huyang says that the damage he did will set him back, but Ahsoka tells him to get the transmitter back online and to contact Hera. Huyang agrees but requests that Ahsoka and Sabine stay together and that they were always better together. Ahsoka and Sabine acknowledges and make a joke out of it, thus leading us to get a shot of Ahsoka and Sabine running off together into the forest towards Balin's location. This is then intercut with a shot of the New Republic fleet once again. In my last breakdown, I went through all these ships in the fleet, but I'll do it once more again here quickly. We have the Mon Calamari ship, aka the Home One. Also, we have 8 transport ships, 2 CR-90 corvettes, as well as one of the Hammerhead corvettes. Lastly, we are greeted with the 3 A-Wings on the left side here. We then go aboard Home One, and we are greeted by Hera, Chopper, and Jason Syndulla. And with that, they are walking. We see from Jason turn to his right that he is wearing Kanan's shoulder pauldron. Now, I believe that this is 100% Kanan's. Also, if we look to the left here, we get our first shot of the Ghost in the series. This is Hera's VCX-100 that we had seen multiple times in Star Wars Rebels. Hera, Chopper, and Jason are stopped by a New Republic lieutenant who tells her that she can't leave without authorization, and Hera tells him to watch her. Hera, Jason, and Chopper all aboard the Ghost, and Jason asks why he has to do what he's told and Hera doesn't. She tells him that once he's a general, he can disobey orders, and then after that, tells him to buckle in. The trio aboard the Ghost exit Home One and move toward the front of the fleet. Here they are greeted by 5 other X-Wings. But we are greeted by cameo not only by Carson Teva, but Deborah Chow, Peter Ramsey, who is the director that is directing this episode, as well as an unnamed pilot and a Rhodidian pilot. Carson informs Hera that she is risking a lot by doing this, and she replies, once a rebel, always a rebel. They then form up as Phoenix Squadron and all jump into hyperspace. This is really cool to see Carson, as well as the X-Wings and Phoenix Squadron being back together. Following this, we cut to a shot of the hyperspace ring, slowly lowering down toward the cliffside on Seatos. And below the ring, Baylan and Morgan are standing here looking out towards the water in the ruins area. Morgan says to Baylan once the guidelines are established, they would be able to calculate the hyperspace coordinates, meaning they're going to go find Thrawn and Ezra. Baylan tells her that if she's off even by a little bit, they will be lost to the depths of the void. Morgan tells him to have faith, and Baylan replies, "I've lost it a long time ago." I believe Baylan is talking about the Jedi Order here, but I could be wrong. Morgan then activates the map in the dome, and with that, the ring is now positioned exactly where it needs to be, lining up with the star map. This is followed by a wide shot of the dome on Seatos looking absolutely amazing. We then cut back to Baylan and he calls all of this witchcraft. We then go aboard the hyperspace ring, and there's a droid in the process of calculating the coordinates. Along with that, we see a map of the galaxy and lettering being scrambled. This is the start of the 9-sequence process. Now, moving on. We are then greeted by Ahsoka and Sabine running through the Red Forest. Both of them run into Merrick and Shin, who are sitting there waiting for them. Shin takes off her cloak and jumps, landing on the ground, starts to stare Sabine down. Shin starts to taunt Ahsoka and Sabine, but Sabine instantly pulls out her blasters and is the first one to initiate this fight, starting to shoot at Shin. Shin runs away into the forest and Sabine is in hot pursuit of her, shooting many blaster bolts in her direction. Ahsoka, on the other hand, stays back and lets Merrick ignite his saber before hers. Interestingly, when Ahsoka ignites her saber, she initially reverts back to her reverse grip. Ahsoka really hasn't done this since Clone Wars, so seeing her do it here is really interesting. Ahsoka and Merrick then start to walk in a circle before engaging one another. Merrick is the first one to engage here as well. Ahsoka, still being in reverse grip, blocks a ton of strikes coming from Merrick, and then she finally goes into her normal stance. And then this is intercut with Sabine, once again in hot pursuit of Shin. Sabine starts firing blaster bolts at her through the forest, but Shin is able to dodge them and deflect them, as well as stops a couple times blocking the bolts before running again. The way that she does this is almost like in a pattern so that she can trap Sabine in an area that's close-knit where she can use the force on her. Sabine runs up on Shin, and Shin uses the force and pushes her into a tree. This causes Sabine's helmet to fall off due to how hard Shin had thrown her into the tree. Shin instantly tries to take Sabine's head off with the saber, but Sabine gets up quick enough and drops under her blade as she slices the tree behind her. Sabine grabs Ezra's saber and ignites it, starting to block Shin's shots. This then cuts back to Ahsoka and Merrick fighting once again. Ahsoka seems to have the upper hand here, and this ends with the two of them locking sabers. This intercuts with the ruins area, and we see the dome activated, along with the beam going towards the hyperspace ring. We also get a new, updated mix of the Imperial March theme, which honestly sounds amazing. We can see this piece of equipment being operated by a droid, and we are able to see that 2 of the 9 stages of the sequence have been completed. Once again, we cut back to Merrick and Ahsoka's fight, and Merrick takes a swing at Ahsoka's head and misses. Ahsoka then moves her saber over her head, and Merrick slowly starts to spin his saber. This then intercuts once again with Sabine and Shin's fight, and Shin seems to have the upper hand here. We also see that Shin is the one who cuts the tree down. In the trailer, I thought this was someone being edited out due to the wonkiness, but this is how the tree just interacts with the ground. I guess on the planet Seatos, trees fall and bounce differently than they do in real life. This is intercut another time, with Ahsoka having her saber above her head as Merrick's saber starts to spin faster and faster. Merrick goes to attack Ahsoka and lunges forward, as well as Ahsoka. We get a shot of Ahsoka, and we see that she is perfectly okay with her saber being held above her head. Behind her, though, we can see Merrick not moving and his saber slowly stops spinning. We then cut over to Merrick, and we can hear the sizzling of his body and see this giant gash across his stomach from a lightsaber wound. This is intercut then with Sabine and Shin fighting, and we can see Ahsoka and Merrick standing here in the background. Sabine and Shin lock sabers as we cut back to Merrick in the same shot. Merrick's saber then deactivates, and we can see this green smoke coming out of him as his limbs start to shrink down, almost bone-like, and a loud scream can be heard. This is the spirit of Merrick leaving his body. I'm going to be having a theory on this coming out sometime tomorrow, but what I'm thinking is that Merrick is already dead. We know that he was a former Inquisitor, and I think that he might have been one that had died. And I think that Morgan Elsbeth had used Night Sister magic to bring him back to life. We had seen this done in Rebels when Maul and Ezra were on Dathomir, and all the former Night Sisters had come back to life due to Mother Talzin's magic. This would also perfectly explain Marok's death here. I'm not mad or sad about this, and I think that's really cool. I wish it could have been someone we all knew, but I'm not worried about it, and I think this was pretty cool to see. We then cut back once again to Shin and Sabine locking sabers as the both of them look away to see Merrick dying, and hearing his spirit screaming as the green smoke fades. Sabine and Shin unlock sabers, and Sabine is back at her ready position, but Shin is distracted still. Sabine yells to Ahsoka and tells her to get the map and that she's got this. Ahsoka agrees and starts running off in the woods towards Balin's location. Shin then averts her attention back to Sabine. As well, she also gets in the ready position here. Shin tells Sabine that she will regret that decision, and that one being sending Ahsoka away. As they start to fight and swing their sabers towards one another, it is intercut once again with Morgan Elsbeth and the ruins area. As she walks up to this piece of equipment, we can see there are now 4 out of the 9 sequences completed. Morgan tells Balin that she is going to prepare for their departure, and that she needs him to protect the map until she sends for him. We then cut to Ahsoka looking at the dome and the hyperspace ring as Morgan is flying to it. This is then followed by a shot that we have seen before in the BTS footage of Ahsoka looking mortified.
Rosaria is so compelling.
Now seeing it completed here, and at a slightly different angle, she seems more interested and worried. We then get the next shot, and that is of Ahsoka checking out the dome closer up and looking around through it. Ahsoka doesn't see anything or anyone, especially not Balin. Ahsoka slowly enters the dome and comes around one of the corners, and there she is greeted by Balin. Balin is sitting on a rock here, waiting for her. Honestly, in my opinion, he looks a lot like Taron Malicos from Fallen Order. I just figured I'd point that out. Balin tells Ahsoka that Anakin spoke highly of her, and Ahsoka replies, "Interesting, he never mentioned you." Balin then stands up, takes off his hood and cloak, and tells Ahsoka that everyone in the Order knew Anakin Skywalker, and that few had lived to see what he had become, and that it surely had left its mark on Ahsoka, and that is why she walked away and abandoned him. Ahsoka, looking very pissed off, takes off her cloak and tells Baylan that she's not here to discuss her past. Baylan then replies to Ahsoka, while approaching her, that he is only here to secure their future. Ahsoka rebuttals with a future for him, and Baylan replies back, saying for something far greater. Ahsoka tells Baylan that he is very ambitious, and he dismisses this, saying no, he is necessary. Ahsoka asks Baylan if starting another war is necessary, and he replies once again, saying he isn't starting a war, but Thrawn will. It is an unfortunate evil that speaks to an unfortunate truth, and that one must destroy in order to create. While this is all happening, we get a couple wide shots, as well as Ahsoka grabbing one of her sabers. Baylan grabs his saber and says how inevitable. Ahsoka and Baylan both activate their sabers, and she starts to walk towards him, slowly with her saber fully activated. As they start to walk in a circle, we get a wide shot, and Ahsoka takes a very samurai-esque stance before she slowly engages Baylan. Ahsoka and Baylan start to fight, and after a couple hits from the both of them, they stop and back up. We can see here that Baylan is also extremely powerful and is the aggressor here. Ahsoka and Baylan square off once again, but this time Baylan is the aggressor. Also, it might just be me, but it looks like Baylan's lightsaber blade length is also growing a little bit. We did see in Rebels that you're able to extend and change saber lengths based on your height, so this is also a possibility. Following this, we see Baylan being more aggressive, taking massive strikes with a lot of power behind them, as Ahsoka is starting to struggle a little bit. Baylan also does the spinning jump, and once again comes down on top of Ahsoka's saber with a whole lot of power. This pushes Ahsoka up against the pillar. Baylan lands a couple strikes down on Ahsoka's saber, and with the sheer power of it coming from his strikes. This intercuts with Morgan above the ring as they enter the command center. She walks up to the screens and sees that they have now completed 5 out of the 9 sequences that are needed to complete the calculations. This lets us know that they are more than halfway complete. The droid tells Morgan Elsbeth that the Jedi has engaged Lord Baylan. She then asks how long until the process is complete, and the droid tells her only moments. This cuts back to Ahsoka and Baylan fighting. We see Ahsoka jumping off a pillar and coming down on top of Baylan's saber, acting and looking way more aggressive. Baylan notices this, however, and starts to back away, and out of reach of her swings, toying with her throughout this process. Baylan and Ahsoka lock sabers, but Baylan pushes her back. This gives Baylan enough time to use the Force and throw a rock at Ahsoka, thus catching her off guard. Ahsoka cuts it down through the air, but she seems to be running out of gas in the tank, so to speak. She seems more tired, having to take pauses, and is getting sloppy with her training. Once again, interestingly, before Ahsoka re-engages Baylan in the fight, she changes her grip back to the reverse grip from Clone Wars. Ahsoka starts to move rather quickly around Baylan as she approaches him, rolling around, doing flips and cartwheels, trying to get close to the orb. We also see here from one of the pieces of equipment left behind that they have now completed the 6th stage, leaving only 3 left. Ahsoka and Baylan keep fighting as she tries to get closer and closer to the orb. Baylan is able to grab Ahsoka's wrist, however, and throws her pretty far away. Just to give some quick thoughts on this, Baylan seems to not only be extremely powerful, but extremely disciplined in his training, and is definitely way stronger than Ahsoka. I think this fight was really cool to see, and feels a lot like George Lucas' Star Wars. Now, moving on. We intercut once again, and are brought back to the fight of Shin and Sabine. But this angle is close to the ground, where Sabine's helmet was knocked off her head, and we could see in the background that Shin and Sabine are fighting. Sabine seems to be not in control of this fight, and Shin definitely seems to have the upper hand here. Sabine starts to get tired and uses one hand on her saber, but Shin notices this and is able to elbow her in the face. Sabine tries to counter this attack, but as her saber is knocked out of her hand, leaving her defenseless. Shin takes a strike at Sabine with her saber, but it gets blocked by Sabine's wrist gauntlets. The only reason why this is possible is because her armor is forged from Beskar. Shin kicks Sabine over onto the ground, fully defenseless. Sabine tries to use the Force to push her back, and I can't tell if she did it, if it was extremely light, where it only made her head turn, or if she didn't at all and Shin was anticipating the blow, but it didn't happen. Interestingly though, when this happens, we hear the sound effect of the Force, so I'm going to say that she did use the Force, just at an extremely low level. Shin tells Sabine that she has no power. With this though, Sabine makes a quick gesture with her hand, putting it down, causing her to fire one of the whistling birds in her wrist gauntlet. This hits Sabine's saber as she tries to block it, knocking it out of her hand. This is the intercut with Baylan swinging at Ahsoka as she uses a pillar to brace herself. They then lock sabers, and Balin tells her that her legacy, like her master's, is one of death and destruction. AHSOKA breaks the saber lock and kicks Balin twice before jumping in the air and kicking him with both legs, thus causing him to fall to the ground. This gives AHSOKA the time she needs to grab the orb. AHSOKA grabs it and deactivates the ruins, but the orb starts to burn her hand, almost like it's poisoning her, making her weak, and causing her to drop it. And due to this, AHSOKA's hand seems to be burning, with the sequence being interrupted. A sound of thunder breaks across the sky and is very loud. So loud, in fact, from where Shin and Sabine are, they can hear it. Sabine has a wrist rocket held up and is pointed at Shin, who is saberless currently. Shin quickly grabs a smoke bomb off her belt so that she can make a quick escape. Once the smoke clears, Sabine grabs Ezra's saber and runs to the same area. But with the way that the shot is framed, it makes me believe that Ezra is going to be reunited with the saber later on in the show, because Sabine now has it once again in her possession. Now moving on. We now go back to the hyperspace ring, and we can see in the background, on the screen behind the droid, that they are at 8 out of 9 stages completed. So AHSOKA had grabbed the orb just in time. Morgan Elsbeth approaches and asks what happened. The droid tells her that the transmission of the coordinates has stopped and the final calculation is incomplete. This cuts back to Balin approaching AHSOKA, saber drawn, as she's still in pain from her hand, and Balin tells her that this was unwise. He takes an overhead swing at her, and multiple swings afterwards, very powerfully I might add, forcing AHSOKA to block them and having to move closer and closer to the edge. Shin approaches and AHSOKA notices her, thus causing Balin to turn around and look at her, and he yells at Shin to grab the map. AHSOKA believes that Sabine is dead at this point, and uses the force to grab Shin and slam her into the wall behind her, knocking her out. This causes Balin to get really pissed off, taking a baseball bat-like swing at Ahsoka Tano. This shot was also in the Get Ready trailer, and I pointed it out in my video, talking about the possibility of Shin's death. If you want to see that video, go ahead and click right here on the top right of your screen. Balin keeps attacking AHSOKA, yelling and screaming as he takes big swings, forcing her further and further back to the edge of the cliffside. Balin and AHSOKA lock sabers once again, and AHSOKA uses her damaged hand to try and use the force to help her with pushing Balin's saber back. Balin tells AHSOKA that it didn't need to come to this, but she knows no other way. Sabine yells out to Balin, telling him to stop. Balin turns around and sees that Sabine is now standing here with her blaster pointed at him while she has the orb in her hand. AHSOKA's in disbelief that Sabine is alive and screams out to her, telling her to destroy the orb. Sabine puts her Westar blaster to the orb and tells Balin to step away from AHSOKA. Balin does so by breaking the saber clash, and he hits AHSOKA's saber, pushing her further back, causing her to fall into the water behind her and off of the cliffside. Sabine screams out loud, yelling no, thinking that AHSOKA is dead here. Balin turns around with the saber activated and starts charging towards Sabine. Sabine starts shooting her blaster at him, and he just deflects every single shot with ease. When he gets closer, Sabine puts the blaster to the orb, and Balin tells her that she should do as her master says and destroy it. While this is happening, Balin keeps approaching and says to Sabine that her master would have done it, and that Sabine is a lot like her master. Sabine angrily tells Balin more than you know. Balin stops walking towards Sabine, deactivating his saber, and tells her that he knows she feels that Ezra Bridger is her only family left. Sabine tells him that he doesn't know what he is talking about, and Balin replies, that is what is holding you back, and that her family died in Mandalore because AHSOKA didn't trust her. This tells us that Sabine's family, her brother Tristan, her father Ulrich, and her mother Ursa had all died on the planet Mandalore. My bet is that they all died in the Night of 1,000 Tears, which was carried out by Moff Gideon. Balin tells Sabine that he and her share a common goal, and that her goal is to make the journey to find her long-lost friend, and Balin's is to serve a greater good. Balin asks Sabine to come with him willingly, and that he will give her his word that she won't be harmed and will be reunited with Ezra. Balin reaches out with his hand and says to Sabine it is the only way, and to do it for Ezra. After a little bit, Sabine reluctantly hands the orb over to Balin, where he smirks and starts to walk towards the podium. Sabine seems to look short of breath here. We all thought watching this live that Balin was force choking Sabine, but it was actually Shin. Balin notices this and tells Shin to release her, but the way he does so, in the manner of him saying it, makes it feel more of like a father-daughter relationship, making me believe that Balin is actually Shin's father. Balin tells Shin that he gave her his word, and unlike Sabine's master, he will keep his. Balin then sets the orb on top of the podium, reactivating the ruins, causing the sequence to become complete. Along with this, Morgan also sends the shuttle to pick up Balin and Shin. We then cut back to Huyang on Ahsoka's T6 shuttle, and he's trying to reach Hera. Hera is able to get a broken signal through to Huyang, and Huyang tries telling her that she needs to get there, and Hera replies, "We are already here." We then see the Ghost and the 5 X-Wings jump out of hyperspace, and right outside, planet Seatos. The only thing that really doesn't make sense with this is I thought the planet and the Denab system were all being jammed in the last episode. Now all of a sudden it isn't? I don't know, this confused me a little bit, but I'm going to move on. Huyang informs Hera about the hyperspace ring and to not let it escape. Carson Teva tells Hera about the ring and they go to block its path. This cuts back to Balin being told by Morgan to come at once. Balin says he understands and walks over to the podium and puts the saber through the orb and holds it there until it is fully sliced in half, making it so that no one could ever have the coordinates to where they are going. Sabine watches as this happens, and Balin says that no one will be following us. The three of them then start to walk towards Balin and Shin's Eta-class shuttle, and with this, the hyperspace ring starts to emerge in the upper atmosphere. The ring starts to pressurize as they get closer to the jump point. As well, Phoenix Squadron all forms up in front of the ring as Balin and Shin's shuttle dock with the ring. They go aboard the command center, and there, one of Morgan Elsbeth's droids inform her that there's 6 crafts that are obstructing the path. Sabine knows that Hera's one of them and is worried for her. Morgan orders the droid to ignore them and to engage the hyperdrive. We get this really ominous sound as the hyperdrive slowly starts to engage and charge up as they prepare for this jump. Phoenix Squadron closes into the ring, while on their scanners they can see a huge surge in power. This tells them that they are about to jump into hyperspace. Following this, that is exactly what they do. The ring makes the jump into hyperspace, but in doing so, fries all the ships in front of them almost like an EMP. This causes 2 fighters to crash into one another, and another one blowing up, leaving only Carson Teva and Deborah Chow's character still alive. Jason and Hera, along with Chopper, all survive as well inside of the Ghost. And from the cockpit in the Ghost, we could see the trail that was left behind from when they made the jump to hyperspace. This move was also performed in The Last Jedi, but wasn't more accurate to what actually would happen. What happened in The Last Jedi was the Holdo maneuver. This is what the Holdo maneuver in The Last Jedi should have looked like, not what we got in the sequels. Jason tells Hera that he has a bad feeling. It almost looks like he's feeling it in his stomach. This leads me to believe that Jason's Sedula is in fact force sensitive. This then cuts back to Huyang at the T6 shuttle, trying to reach Ahsoka and Hera, but to no avail. We once again go back to the ruins area with a top-down perspective shot, panning towards the water on the left side. With this, the water starts to turn into a misty blue color, and we see Ahsoka's forearm as well as her body. As Ahsoka wakes up, you can see a little ripple effect from her body emerge. Ahsoka sits up, and we can see that she is in the world between worlds. I never thought that we were going to see this in live action, let alone get a full revamp of the area. This looks absolutely incredible, and is way more mysterious than it was beforehand. Ahsoka stands up, looks around, and we hear a faint, distant, but recognizable voice say, "Hello, Snips." Ladies and gentlemen, Hayden Christensen has said Snips in live-action Star Wars. Ahsoka calls out Master, and Anakin says to her, "I didn't expect to see you so soon." While he says this, Ahsoka feels her head and starts to turn, giving us the reveal of Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker from Revenge of the Sith. Hayden is de-aged, and this shot of Ahsoka turning around parallels exactly the shot of where Ahsoka and Anakin last saw each other in Season 7 of the Clone Wars. We get a close-up shot of Ahsoka saying Anakin, then that is followed with another close-up shot of Anakin. We get closer and closer on his face, and he smirks, wearing his Revenge of the Sith robes. If we look to the left of Hayden's face, we can also see that his scar is here. It is kind of hard to see, so I figured I would point this out. This cuts back to Ahsoka looking extremely happy, and we get a cut to black as Vader's theme starts playing, ending the episode. Lastly, we get Hayden's name in the credits of this episode, thus ending this breakdown. I just have to say, no fucking way. There is no way in hell I thought we would see Hayden in this episode, as well as the world between worlds. This had me in tears. It had me screaming for joy. It had me shocked and puzzled. And my question is, did Hayden pull her out just before she died, like Ezra had done for her in the world between worlds before? Or did Morai have some sort of reason for this happening? We know Ahsoka could technically be a Mortis god due to the daughter using her Force essence to bring Ahsoka back from the dead once before. Let me know what you all think. I for one thought this episode was amazing, from the fight choreography to the cinematography to the score, the acting, and everything in between. Dave Filoni not only deserves a raise, but needs to be the sole person overseeing all of Star Wars, including all of its writing. Dave Filoni, in my opinion, has saved Star Wars. I cannot praise him enough, and holy shit, I cannot wait for next week's episode. Also, this Sunday, Jar Jar Jargon and I will once again be releasing another episode of Cantina Jargon. With that, for episode 5, we're going to have Star Wars Sith on Cantina Jargon as a guest. We will be going over the craziness of the next episode that is being directed by Dave Filoni. With that, go ahead and get yourself some Cantina Talk merch, the link is in the description. Without further ado, I hope you all enjoyed the video, let me know what you think in the comments down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And lastly, may the Force be with you all.